Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne's Sharp World, where today I'm going to be bringing you guys a full review of a knife that I've been wanting to get my hands on for quite a while, ever since it came out. I believe this is the second version of it, and what we have here is the Luft Concepts Avent. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. And I also want to give a huge shout out to DLG Trading for sending this over my way. Be sure to look them up for all of your knife and EDC needs. Hop on down in the description below of this video and check the link here to see if there's any more of these still left in stock. I really don't know if there will be at the time I'm uploading this. I had to give it, the proper amount of time to get an accurate full review in, with also trying to get you guys a quick turnaround, because I know these are going to sell fast because they are a pretty popular knife and they're made in somewhat smaller batches. So let's get right into it and let's take a look at some overall specs on this guy right here. We have an overall length coming in at 7.75 inches, a blade length coming in at 3.25 inches, and a blade thickness of slightly thicker than average 140 thousandths. Blade material on this guy is M390 with kind of that PM2 style clip point blade. You definitely get some hints of PM2 vibes, but it's also so drastically different. It's just a nice spin, nice overall design we got going on here. We have an extremely good hollow grind on the blade, which we'll talk more about when we get to the blade. A handle length coming in at 4.5 inches with a handle width at 873 thousandths, right around here towards the middle of the handle, so you'll probably get out closer to an inch down here. We have a handle thickness of 500 thousandths on the dot, which is a very nice thickness for me. It's something I like to see on a lot of production knives or a lot of folding knives in general. Handle material here, we have some titanium with honeycomb milling, which is pretty darn good looking, I gotta say. I also like the grip that provides. We have a locking mechanism of a good old standard liner lock that is done very well. User of a right or left hand tip up carry. It's nice to see some of the premiums with that left or right option. You don't always see that. So very, very nice there. A weight coming in at 4.13 ounces. And you noticed I said premium. That is indeed what this is, and it comes with a premium price tag of $350. Keep in mind, I believe this is REOP manufactured, so there's definitely the REOP fee in there. And then, of course, the guys designing this and running Luft Concepts, they got to make some money too. So $350 is where we're at with this. And let's take a look at some size comparisons real quick. And I only got two to compare it with because I really think it's the two that's going to do what everybody needs in terms of just getting an overall size down. The Para 3 and, of course, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is definitely where you want to be here for size comparisons in terms of kind of like the blade shape and all that good stuff. This is really what you need to see. I think a lot of people have a really good idea of the length and size of these two knives, and there you go. Very, very close to the PM2, although it definitely feels different in hand. It has similar traits to a PM2, but the kind of the bottom half of the handle is where things really get different, and in really just kind of a very neutral way. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. I think they're both pretty good when it comes to that. So there's those, and now let's get into this review, and let's start with this blade. And I'll be very honest with you guys, while I do have a couple issues with this knife, not many issues with this blade. This blade is extremely well done. If you're like me, like I said, you definitely get the PM2 vibes right off the bat, which is a very good thing because I think PM2 is a beautiful knife and it's one of my all-time favorite production knives ever. So definitely good things there, but after you shake those vibes off, you definitely have your own knife. I'm by no way, by any stretch of the imagination, trying to say that this was a play on a PM2, because there's so much differences that go into the blade and the handle, and even the locking mechanism is completely different. So I definitely no direct ties, but some similarities I like to see. In terms of this blade, the first thing you notice is the hollow grind, and the moment you kind of put your fingers right here, you're thinking, okay, this is something good, because what you have here is a nice deep hollow grind. I mean, this stays thin for quite a while. The edge is coming in at 14 thousandths, and I measured that right around here on the edge. 14 thousandths up into a nice, pretty tall hollow grind makes for a very, very slicey blade. Love seeing that, but I also like how this hollow grind starts to taper off right around the tip. So you still have, it's hard to kind of get this in focus here, you still have a nice slicey tip, but you also have a very robust tip that should be very capable of handling some heavier work while the belly can really do all the slicing. So really nice blade design in general here. You get back into the cutout, and while the cutout does look good, there's one thing you got to kind of be mindful of, and I'll explain that here in just a second. But a good looking cutout, but you also have kind of, as you can see down here, the top of the cutout is considerably thicker than the bottom end of the cutout. So depending on what you're cutting and the fact that this is chamfered, but it still has some good, a pretty good bite for the middle finger flick, this could potentially maybe cause a little drag issues. That really depends on what you're cutting. I mean, you'd have to be running through some, long cuts through some thicker stuff like heavy duty cardboard or something to really feel any drag. So it's not really a major concern. The only thing that makes it a little concerning for me is that the cutout is so long and goes so far into the blade. You really only have, that much of the blade above my thumb there that is going to be the real super slicey business. The rest of this is good for some, some general cuts in general, but you could maybe have a little drag issues with that long blade cut out there. Another thing that I would really like to see on this knife is some jimping back here, because while the ergos are very good and I'm confident in my grip, it is very slippery right here, and it's because they did a really good job of chamfering the sides of the blade and smoothed everything out like they should, and that's really good and great and all. But one of the things that really makes me love the blade on the PM2 so much is that jimping right there. And as you can see, you just don't have that on the Avant. Yeah. So I would love to see some jimping there. I think that would really kind of be the perfect touch to this blade, because this blade is meant to be used, and I think you could use it pretty heavily with such a thin, slicey hollow grind, but some jimping there would really, really increase my confidence in just mastering the grip on this guy. But other than that, it is pretty much done phenomenally well. I love the design of it. I love the slicey belly and blade in general, and I think it's going to be a pretty good user. Now, when you get into the handle, the ergos are really nice on this knife. There's nothing that I really dislike about it. I don't need any contouring. I love the honeycomb milling because it adds a good amount of grip to the knife, which I really like, and it's a surprisingly tacky, bitey grip, to where when I get this in hand, especially around the edges up here where the milling and the honeycomb milling kind of ends, you still get some nice grip up there along the sides of the handle. I like that a whole lot. The zirconium highlights on this, or not, well, it is kind of a highlight, but it's also just parts of the knife that are zirconium. The pivot ring here and the backspacer. I don't dislike it. I really, really like the dark gray and raw titanium look they got going on here. I'm just wondering if black and titanium wouldn't be a little more cost effective for the actual knife. I always get the feeling that zirconium is more expensive than titanium, and we're talking about a $350 knife here. Anything that can be done to reduce cost would be a good thing. So while I don't have any issues with it, I think it looks great, but it does add a little weight to the knife. Zirconium's a little heavier. I don't know. You tell me. Would you prefer zirconium, or, if they could have saved a little money, would you have rather just seen some black and titanium? Because I personally would have been just as happy with black and titanium as compared to the zirconium. But again, I'm really kind of going off rumblings of what I've heard and general thoughts and rules of thumb in terms of pricing and whatnot. So I may not even be right in saying that. But I'm just curious as to what the zirconium did to the price, if anything. If it increased the price, I would prefer the zirconium not be there to kind of just help keep that. Even if you could just take this from $350 to $325, I would rather go that route. But either way, it does still look good. It was just kind of a general thought I had that came through my mind as I was looking at this, writing my notes, and giving it all the kind of questions I have when I'm reviewing a knife. The one thing on this knife that was really missed, that I'm really not a fan of, is this pocket clip. And it's because it's a wire clip. Now, it works fine, and, on a lot of knives, a wire clip looks okay. My thing with this knife here, this Avent, is so extra. It's so classy or elegant. I don't know how to describe it, but the lines are just good. They speak premium to me. And I think putting a wire clip on it kind of dims that down. It had really good, like, nice premium, elegant vibes. I don't even know what to come up with, but I think you know what I'm getting at. It has more of the real high-end feel on this, and I think the wire clip just kind of brings that down. And I don't know if that's a good thing for this knife, because everything about it says, hey, look at me, I'm premium and badass, and then, oh, but wait, I've got a wire clip. So I don't know. It's just me. I would definitely prefer a milled clip on this. I think a milled clip would look so much better. And from an ergonomic standpoint, this feels great. I don't have any issues with the feel or performance of it. That's all good. And that's usually one of the things that you can kind of rely on with a wire clip for the most part. But a milled clip really, I think, is much better fitting on a knife of this design and of this appearance and just everything else that's got going on. I think a wire clip kind of brings it down. But just me. One last thing here that I really like about the handle is the liner lock. This really does remind me kind of like Sheer Goroff. I definitely get some Sheer Goroff vibes from this just because of how easy it is to get in there and push it down. You have a lot of beveling there on the liner lock. Makes it very, very easy to just kind of get in there and close that blade. So big fan of that. Now getting into the action on this guy, I apologize guys if you're hearing that in the background. My heater just kicked on, and I'm not going to stop this video and redo it because we're just about home. The action on this guy is pretty good, but this is where I have my other issue with this knife, and that is the detent. And I say this with a grain of salt all the time because on production knives, and I don't care if you're talking about Riot, Civivi, Kaiser, QSP, any production knife can potentially have this problem, and it's not necessarily the case for all the other ones, but it does have a light detent. Now, if we were talking about just the flipper, the detent for just the flipper is fine for me. The problem is you have this cutout here, and it's very easy to kind of do that, and that did not, it just engaged as I flipped it up, but it's very easy to do that because it's that light of a detent on this one. Now, and there again, see, I went to close it, it bounced, and it didn't close. So that is the issue with just this knife. I don't know if that's the run-of-the-mill. I would be willing to bet it's not since it's Riot, but that can always happen. That's kind of just one of the risks we take when we buy high-end knives like this. But yeah, the detent on this one is a little light, and that for a knife of this price, yeah, that just, you can't be okay with that. That is definitely considered a real problem because a detent is so critical on knives like this, especially when you're talking multiple deployment methods. If it's a flipper and a blade cutout, the detent has to be soft enough to where the flipper won't give you any issues, which surprisingly, this flipper does not give me any issues. I really am surprised by the fact that there's no jimping up here. But this flipper's good to go for me. I got no issues whatsoever. It kind of reminds me of a Vero flipper tab, so if you're familiar with that, you know how well they work. Even though I think Vero flipper tabs do have jimping, I don't miss jimping on this flipper tab. I'm completely okay with it looking just like this. It works fantastically well. I also like that little bit of blade branding there that they avoided putting anywhere on the blade. That's fantastic. So that's another little note that I should have thrown in there along the blade. But no, the action overall is good, but it is definitely hurt for the middle finger flick with that lack of detent. I would definitely like to see kind of a firmer detent on this guy, but that's really the only issue I have, the detent and the wire clip. And again, the detent could very well be much better on another sample of this model. I just happen to get one with a light detent. There's ways you can fix it. There's ways you can go about it for a knife this price. I would probably just try return it and see if, hey, do you have any other ones in stock? Because, yeah, that's just not a problem I want to deal with on a $350 knife. Outside of that, though, detent aside, wire clip aside, I really like this knife. I don't know if I love it, but I really like it. I would definitely consider buying it. One with a better detent, and even with the clip, I would still probably consider buying it, but I personally would like to see a milled clip on this. But overall, I am pretty impressed. I think it's a great, different type of EDC knife that I think a lot of people would love to have in the pocket, as long as you're okay with that $350 price tag. So let me know what you think about this knife, as well as the price. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, I'm out.